Alien woman didn't expect to get pregnant by human man. Damon Ress's first thought upon waking in a sterile, humming alien cell was, well, at least they didn't take my pants. It wasn't a particularly inspired thought, but considering the circumstances, abduction, forced stasis, what he assumed was an alien body scan involving more lasers than was strictly polite, he gave himself some slack. His second thought was that the ceiling looked like an upscale LED nightclub, minus the bass and the regrettable decisions. A voice crackled overhead, calm, mechanical, probably female. You are awake, subject integrity, stable, neural elasticity average, humor centers, overactive. Damon sat up slowly, blinking. Hey, I'll have you know my humor center's tested in the 95th percentile back home. The door opened with a sound like a sigh. In walked the alien, and not the squishy, gray-eyed, probe-happy type from vintage horror movies. No, this one looked very humanoid, taller than him by a few inches, with skin like moonlight filtered through deep ocean water and long, pointed ears that twitched minutely as she moved. Her white coat shimmered with embedded light circuits, and in one elegant hand she held a datapad. She regarded him like a biologist might regard a frog halfway through dissection. You are the human Damon Riss. Last I checked, he said. You must be the welcoming committee. Though I gotta say, your hospitality could use some work. You don't even have coffee. I am Kaelis of Eolara, xenogeneticist first class. You are aboard the Nixera for observation and sample extraction. You were selected based on proximity and acceptable phenotypic variants. Wow, you really know how to flatter a guy. Damon grinned. And here I thought I was just charming. Kaelis stared. Your ego is disproportionately large for your cranial volume. Ah, you noticed? She turned to leave, pausing only to say, do not attempt escape. The airlock is not decorative. Well, now I want to see it, he called after. For the next 48 Earth Standard Hours, according to the annoyingly chipper ship interface named Nixie, Damon underwent tests, poking, prodding, scanning, and more scanning. Most of it harmless. Some of it awkward. Especially the moment when a hovering diagnostic orb insisted on cataloging reproductive viability parameters in excruciating detail. I feel violated, Damon muttered, clutching the silver jumpsuit they'd given him. You are, Kaelis replied without looking up from her monitor. Scientifically, she rarely spoke beyond what was required. Everything about her was clinical, efficient, cool as the deep vacuum. Yet somehow that only made Damon more determined to get under her skin, or whatever Eolorans had under there. So, Kaelis, he said one day while floating upside down in a zero-G analysis chamber, you always kidnap people for science, or am I just special? You were a statistical match within acceptable deviation for my current reproductive experiment. Your species' DNA is malleable and adaptive. Reproductive experiment? Damon flailed and spun into a slow cartwheel. You trying to make little blue-eared humans or something? Kaelis did not sigh, but it was a near thing. Genetic blending to test compatibility thresholds across species. Fertilization was simulated via nanotransfer without contact. Your gametes were, how do you say, liberated? Damon blinked. I'm gonna need a t-shirt that says I got abducted, and all I got was genetically harvested. Your humor is inefficient, she said, but he saw the corner of her lip twitch. Just barely. He didn't know why he kept talking to her. Maybe because she was the only one who answered. Maybe because behind her clinical wall of equations and enzyme charts he sensed something else. A mind like a crystalline computer, yes, but also one that occasionally hesitated, as though surprised by its own curiosity. Damon started leaving her small gifts, a hand-drawn doodle of her with giant anime eyes, a gummy worm from his emergency ration pack, a Terran pun scrawled on his datapad screen. Are you made of copper and tellurium? Because you're cute. She confiscated the joke, cited him for verbal corrosion, and did not give the worm back. Still, she stopped monitoring him via drone as often. And when Damon started telling her stories, tales of Terran chaos, karaoke nights at the spaceport, the time he'd crash-landed on a sentient fungus planet, she didn't interrupt. She even asked questions. Why would your species consume ethanol despite its toxic effects? Because it's fun, until the singing starts. That is illogical. Lady, being human is basically 50% illogical. The rest is just bad decisions and memes. It was the third week when things started getting weird. Kaelis began running internal scans on herself. Quietly, secretly. Her readings were shifts in endocrine functions, elevated neurotransmitter level, a localized cellular growth in her abdominal region. Impossible. The simulation had been clean. The genetic transfer was supposed to be sterile, purely theoretical. She hadn't even touched him outside of sample retrieval. But the data was clear. She was pregnant, with a half-human fetus. Kaelis sat in silence, her long fingers curled over the edge of her lab console. This was not part of the hypothesis, and worse, far worse, she didn't feel disgust. She didn't feel horror. She felt curious. No, fascinated. She needed to isolate, analyze, run tests, terminate the anomaly if necessary. That would be the logical course. She placed a hand on her abdomen. The gesture startled her. "Kaelis to Nixie," she said aloud. "Hello," chirped the ship AI. "Would you like another rousing update on human nutritional imbalances?" Silence. Lockdown Lab Wing Theta. No entry, no monitoring. Authorization Kaelis 009. Confirmed. Privacy protocols engaged. Have fun. Kaelis stood alone as the doors sealed around her. She didn't know what she would do yet. But one thing was certain. The experiment was no longer just an experiment. Damon was upside down again. Not by choice. Nixie's gravity recalibration system had chosen this moment, mid-toothbrushing, to fail spectacularly, turning his morning routine into a slow-motion orbital ballet of toothpaste globules and profanity. "I demand compensation," he shouted, tumbling past a floating towel. "Preferably in coffee or dignity." "Compensation denied," Nixie replied cheerily. "But we do have a delightful update on your electrolyte levels." "I'd rather be punched by a comet." "You are trending slightly magnesium deficient. Shall I notify Kaelis?" "No." Damon flailed, caught a bulkhead rail, and hauled himself upright. "Absolutely not. She already thinks I'm a sentient nutritional hazard. I'm not giving her more ammo." In truth, he hadn't seen Kaelis in 4 days. She'd locked herself away in Lab Wing Theta, which he was pretty sure was code for "do not disturb unless you want to be vaporized." Damon had knocked once, politely. He'd even tried slipping a note under the door, though in 0G under was a flexible concept, and the note had floated away dramatically. He missed her. Not that he'd admit that out loud, or even to himself. Okay, maybe to himself, but only quietly. He drifted into the galley, where the food printer offered him something called Protein Slab Omega. It looked like guilt and tasted like texture. As he chewed, slowly dying inside, he wondered what Kaelis was doing, probably slicing atoms with her mind, or dissecting the universe into neat little cubes of understanding. He did not, for even a moment, imagine her hunched over a med scanner, eyes wide, heart pounding, replaying the same biometric data loop for the 100th time. Kaelis had not eaten in 2 days. Not because she forgot, she was Eolaran, not irrational, but because her stomach twisted at the smell of synthetic sustenance. Her body rejected anything not specifically calibrated. Even Nixie's nutrient-dense algae broth, which she once consumed with the enthusiasm of someone reviewing lab safety protocol, now made her gag. This was inconvenient. Also terrifying. She scanned her abdomen again. The readings were consistent. The fetal mass was growing at a rate 16% above projection. Hybridization markers suggested enhanced adaptation response, multi-system resonance, neural pattern formation. She hadn't even implanted anything. The nanotransfer had been suspended in isolated phase gel. There had been no direct contact. Nothing that could have possibly, unless Damon's cellular material had spontaneously self-replicated through quantum feedback, which, to be fair, was very on brand for humans. Reckless, adaptive, loud. She stared at the scan. She was making a new life. Her. Kaelis. The scientist who once published an essay titled Emotion, Evolutionary Error? She ran a simulation, then a second, then ran 500 simulations back to back, hoping one would return an error, a miscalculation, a flaw that would let her categorize this as a malfunction. They all confirmed viability. She had to tell him. The thought came with a strange flutter in her chest. Discomfort, anticipation, dread. Kaelis was still pondering that unfamiliar sensation when the lab doors slid open and Damon stumbled in, holding what looked like a tray of protein cubes arranged in the shape of a smiling face. "Hey, so I know you locked yourself in the science cave, but you looked kind of pale last time I saw you and I figured, snacks?" Kaelis blinked at him. He was disheveled. His shirt was on backwards. There was a smear of toothpaste on his ear. He looked like home, which made no sense. "You should not be in here," she said. "Door was open. I did not open it. Well, I might have. Maybe I asked Nixie to do it. That is a violation of I brought food. He held up the tray. See the smiley face? That's diplomacy. Hesitated, then gestured him in. Damon stepped closer, noted the flickering med display and squinted. Huh, is that a baby scan? Wait, no, is that your? Yes. He stared, then blinked, then stared harder. Wait, what? Kaelis took a breath. There has been a complication in the genetic isolation protocol. Unexpected fertilization, cellular merging. The result is an active hybrid fetus currently developing within my body. Damon's voice pitched. You're pregnant? Yes, with my kid? Kaelis nodded. Okay. He sat down very slowly on the nearest console. Cool, just give me 1 sec to scream into the void. He made a sound like a kettle boiling and buried his face in his hands. Kaelis waited, patiently. Eventually he looked up. So that happened. Yes. I didn't even buy you dinner. You did offer me a gummy worm. Was it a fertility gummy worm? Kaelis tilted her head. Do such things exist? Let's hope not. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Damon said quietly, Are you okay? Kaelis considered the question. No. He nodded. Yinam either. More silence. Then, do you want to keep it? Damon asked. I mean, I'll support whatever you decide. You didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. Heck, the baby didn't ask for this. I do not know yet, Kaelis said. But I do know this. Terminating the gestation would not simplify the data. It would only end it. That sounds like a no. Kaelis paused. It sounds like I am uncertain, but uncertainly intrigued. Damon smiled, then frowned. Wait, does that mean I'm stuck here longer? Not that I mind the company, but the food printer's been threatening me with algae stew again. You are genetically required to remain within proximity, Kaelis said. Eolaran law dictates both progenitors must remain until postnatal stabilization. Well, there goes my Thursday. He leaned back. Guess I better learn how to be a space. You are not qualified. Neither are you. That is an excellent point. Nixie's voice cut in. Would either of you like to read 101 facts about interstellar parenting? Chapter 1 is called What to Expect When You're Expecting Something That Breaks Physics. No, they said in unison. Kaelis looked at him. You should rest. I will need to adjust the artificial gravity for gestational support. It may interfere with your balance. You say that like I had balance to begin with. As Damon stood to leave, he paused. Hey, I know this is way outside the plan, but I'm here, okay? Not going anywhere. Kaelis didn't answer, not out loud, but as the door closed behind him, her hand drifted again to her stomach. The data was messy, unprecedented, irrational. But she wasn't afraid of it anymore, just curious. And maybe, just maybe, hopeful. Damon tried not to panic when the Eolaran shuttle docked with the Nixara. No, they brought the suits, he whispered, flattening himself against the corridor wall like a man who just remembered he left his stove on. Why do they have robes? Why are they glowing? Are they going to chant? I hate chanting. They are not chanting, Kaelis said calmly, though she hadn't blinked in several minutes. They are Eolaran High Council members. The glowing indicates emotional intensity. Okay, well, that one is pulsing magenta, and I'm 90% sure magenta means furious. Incorrect. It means disappointed, but with undertones of legal readiness. That's not better. Kaelis adjusted the folds of her lab coat, inhaled once, and faced the docking hatch as it unsealed with a smooth hiss. The council delegation entered like a power outage, silent, serious, and probably about to ruin everyone's week. 4 tall figures, ears even longer than Kaelis's, each wrapped in layered data films that shimmered with embedded glyphs. The lead stepped forward. Kaelis of Eolara, she intoned, your experiments have breached Protocol 17-Alpha and 19-Beta. Your unauthorized hybridization has triggered a full review of your status as xenogeneticist. Damon raised a hand. Hi, quick question. How am I unauthorized? I was very present for the unauthorized parts. They ignored him. Kaelis stood straighter. There was no breach. The nanotransfer was sterile. The fertilization was spontaneous. Spontaneous fertilization is a statistical impossibility, another delegate said, their voice like dry leaves. Damon muttered, They haven't met college freshmen. The child you carry represents a biological wild card, the lead delegate continued. Its existence threatens the purity of Eolaran genetics and the neutrality of our scientific code. Okay, seriously, Damon said. You guys are talking about my kid like it's a radioactive fungus. Can we maybe not do that? This is not a matter of sentiment, human. It kind of is, Damon said, because I have a sentiment. Several, actually. One of them is stop calling my daughter a threat. The room pulsed with a light so blue it gave him a headache. Kaelis raised a hand. You cannot extract the fetus. You will not touch her. I invoke Article 13. That got their attention. You are invoking planetary asylum? I am, Damon whispered. Wait, we have a planetary asylum article? Why do I not get a planetary asylum article? Kaelis ignored him. You may not interfere. The gestation will proceed. Damon will remain aboard. The child will be born. And then you may perform your evaluations. The delegates stared. One of them began projecting legal statutes in the air, strings of code and law flowing like silk. Another tapped it irritably with a clawed finger. Eventually, the lead delegate spoke. Very well, but you are exiled until further review. You may not return to Eolaran space. You are deemed unstable variable. Damon gasped. You're getting exiled? That's so hardcore. I didn't even get a warning. Kaelis replied. You were technically declared a biohazard on day 1. He looked smug. Nice. The council turned and left. As the shuttle undocked, Kaelis exhaled and sat heavily on a bench. That went better than I expected, she said. That was better? Damon asked. What's worse? Executions by math? They once deleted a researcher's entire name for misclassifying algae. Damon blinked. Remind me to never go near algae again. That night, or what passed for night aboard the ship, Kaelis ate real food for the first time in days. Damon had finally found a setting on the food printer labeled Earth Comfort Mode. The result was something vaguely lasagna adjacent, but it smelled edible and didn't glow. Why does it taste like sadness, she asked. Because it's lasagna, he said, chewing. All good lasagna contains a minimum of 30% repressed emotion. They ate in silence for a while. Then Kaelis said, You are not obligated to stay. I kind of am, he said. Genetic contributor, remember? You could request separation. We are no longer in a neutral zone. Kaelis, Damon said, leaning back. I may not be a super genius scientist with glowing ears, but I do know what I want. And right now, what I want is to help raise this weird, wonderful little science miracle we accidentally made. Kaelis tilted her head. You find her. Wonderful? I mean, I haven't met her yet, but she's half me and half you. That sounds like a disaster with potential. Her expression softened. Statistically, she is likely to cause chaos. I'm counting on it. They were interrupted by a sudden flicker of lights. Nixie's voice warbled. Hello, quick update. The ship's bioresonance field has begun fluctuating in sync with Kaelis's biorhythms. Oh, and the child appears to be emitting low-frequency gravitational pulses. Isn't that exciting? Kaelis frowned. Gravitational pulses? That's not possible at this stage. Nixie's cheerful tone didn't change. And yet, here we are, Damon groaned. She's not even born yet, and she's already messing with the gravity. She's your kid. Kaelis stood. We need to isolate her emissions. If they continue to intensify, she could destabilize the entire ship's field. You mean she's going to flip the ship upside down with a hiccup? Metaphorically, yes. Cool. Can I at least finish my lasagna first? No. As Kaelis ran diagnostics, Damon trailed behind her like a sarcastic duckling. Hey, if the baby gets special gravitational powers, do I get anything? Like super hearing? Or maybe the ability to digest those algae cubes? You already have the unique human ability to survive while deeply unqualified. I'm choosing to take that as a compliment. Kaelis froze. The signal's amplitude just doubled. Damon leaned in. She hear us? Possibly. She may be responding to vocal stimuli. Well then, he crouched beside Kaelis's stomach and spoke clearly. Hey, kiddo, this is your dad. Sorry about the food. I'll do better once you have teeth. The signal stabilized. Kaelis stared. She responded. I have dad powers now. I demand a cape. Kaelis looked at him, tired and amused and slightly terrified. Damon? Thank you. Hey, he said. We're a team now. You, me, and little Gravity Pulse in there. She smiled just a little. The next day, the Nyxera entered deep drift space. Untraceable, unwelcome. But somehow, for the first time since the experiment began, Kaelis did not feel alone. Kaelis's morning began with a ship-wide systems alert and Damon yelling, I didn't touch anything this time, from 3 corridors away. By now, that was as natural as the ship's power cycles. She calmly adjusted her neural uplink visor, accessed the ship logs, and narrowed her eyes at the rapidly blinking notification. Bioresonance field fluctuation. Source, fetal entity Nyx 1A. That would be the fetus. Her fetus. Their fetus. She double-checked the readings. Damon, meanwhile, thundered into the lab clutching a mug that said Galaxy's okayest pilot in peeling glitter font. Hey, he said out of breath. I think the baby just turned off the gravity in the shower. I may never emotionally recover. She is not consciously disabling ship systems, Kaelis replied. She is broadcasting quantum harmonics. Okay, but my towel floated away mid-rinse, and I think I made eye contact with the backup cleaning drone. We're not on speaking terms anymore. Kaelis sighed. The fetal energy signature has reached a level where containment protocols are no longer viable. We will need an external stabilization chamber. Is that science for babies getting too strong for the ship? Yes, she is overloading the onboard quantum mesh. Damon squinted at the readouts. How is that even possible? She's not even born yet. She is Eolaran human hybrid. She may be evolving faster than expected. So we have a baby who's already better at physics than I am. That's great. Really boosts my self-esteem. Nixie chimed in cheerfully. Would you like me to construct a mobile resonance dampener cradle? I can also add glitter decals. Absolutely, Damon said. No, Kaelis said at the same time. They looked at each other. Damon raised an eyebrow. Kaelis blinked. Compromise, he offered. Minimal shimmer, no animation. You're the boss, Sparkle Mom. Over the next few days, the baby, whom Damon insisted on calling Nova, despite Kaelis's repeated reminders that no official designation had been approved, continued to rewrite the ship's laws of reality. Power surges became a daily nuisance. Doors opened before being touched. Artificial gravity flickered during emotionally charged conversations, which Damon found especially inconvenient when trying to appear tall during arguments. You're floating again, Kaelis noted during one such discussion. I'm not floating. I'm asserting dominance. Damon replied, spinning gently. They soon realized the ship couldn't sustain the pregnancy much longer. Kaelis's condition was stable for now, but her neural patterns were syncing with the child's, and that bond was beginning to leak, electromagnetically, into the ship's AI framework. So our baby is hacking the ship, Damon said during the emergency diagnostics run. She is not hacking, Kaelis said. She is blending. You say that like it's a smoothie recipe and not a reality hazard. Her energy patterns are integrating with both Eolaran tech and organic code. It is unprecedented. It's also melting the coffee synthesizer. That is unfortunate. It's a crisis. Agreed. With few options left, Kaelis made a decision. We must reach Outpost Zeros, she said. It is the only unmonitored installation with the required infrastructure to contain and support this birth. Damon frowned. Didn't that place get abandoned for ethical violations? They created sentient plumbing. That is hardly relevant to our situation. I'm just saying, I don't want my daughter's first words to be whispered by a haunted toilet. Duly noted. Nixie plotted a course, and within a few hours, the Nixara was gliding through subspace toward the dark quadrant known unofficially as the Forgotten Fringe. It was the kind of area populated by pirates, rogue AI poets, and sentient starfish philosophers who'd been banned from more civilized sectors for excessive dramatic flair. They were intercepted by 2 ships within 6 hours. The first hailed them in binary. Kaelis responded with strict protocol. Damon responded by accidentally overriding the audio with a recording of himself singing "Hit Me With Your Laser Beam." The pirates disengaged immediately. The second ship was more persistent. Damon suited up and headed to the lower turret, despite Kaelis's insistence that retaliation was unnecessary. I've been looking for an excuse to shoot something all week, he said. Besides, I feel weird just talking to everyone who tries to blow us up. Your aggression is noted. He grinned. Thanks, that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Kaelis rerouted power to shields. The ship jolted once, twice, then Damon's voice crackled over comms. Okay, minor update. I may have accidentally turned off their weapons array with a ricochet shot. They're now offering us trade and cake? Ignore the cake. They say it's space frosted. No. They left the pirates behind with only minor bruises to Damon's ego. By the time they reached Outpost Zeros, the ship's internal systems were operating at 57% efficiency, and Kaelis was experiencing neural fatigue. Damon carried her to the medbay himself, which she argued about until she passed out mid-protest. He stayed by her side while the outpost's remaining AI systems booted up one by one. Welcome to Zeros, a dusty holoprojector said. Population, you. Kaelis regained consciousness inside the outpost's biostatic cradle. It had auto-calibrated to her vitals, scanning her in pulses that tingled across her skin. Damon sat nearby, fiddling with a broken diagnostic tool. She looked at him and whispered, "We are not prepared." He looked back. "I'm not sure anyone ever is, but I've got a wrench, a heart full of panic, and a playlist of lullabies sung by 1980s androids. We'll be fine." The fetal signal spiked. Lights dimmed. Kaelis gripped the sides of the cradle. "She's coming." Damon stood. "Then let's meet the universe's first reality-bending space baby." Somewhere deep in the station, power surged. Kaelis screamed, and Nova prepared to be born. The first thing Nova did upon entering the universe was blink, once, and cause every light in the outpost to surge, dim, and then glow a calming pastel violet. Damon, breathless, stared at the tiny creature in Kaelis' arms and said, Is she supposed to be glowing?" Kaelis, who looked like she'd just survived a black hole with her pride intact but hair utterly defeated, replied, "The bioluminescence is likely a side effect of her hybridized neural matrix, or she is establishing emotional dominance over the room. Unclear." "She has your ears." Damon leaned in. "And I think my nose. Sorry about that." "She is," Kaelis blinked slowly. "Healthy, beautiful," Damon added, "and possibly omnipotent." Nova blinked again. The ceiling's atmospheric settings shifted from neutral white to gentle aurora. Damon slowly reached out and touched her tiny hand, which promptly caused the door to open, close, and then display a dancing hologram of a sheep wearing a space helmet. "Right," he said. "Totally normal baby things." Kaelis smiled. A real one this time. Tired, unguarded, and a little crooked. Damon had never seen anything more disarming. Later, when Nova was tucked into the cradle, Nixie had hastily upgraded with phase stabilizers and an anti-singularity mesh. Damon sat beside Kaelis on the floor of the outpost's central chamber. "So," he said, "we made a baby who casually edits reality and responds to lullabies with gravitational waves." Kaelis nodded. "Correct. Does this mean she'll have to go to a very special kind of school, assuming any exist by the time she reaches 5 months of age?" "Awesome. I was never very attached to linear time anyway." They watched the cradle hum gently. Kaelis' hand found Damon's without her consciously thinking about it. He didn't comment, just squeezed. The next week passed in something close to peace. If peace meant daily recalibration of energy fields, 2 gravity failures, and an incident involving the AI attempting to create a parenting manual and accidentally inventing a new language. Damon read to Nova. She seemed to enjoy it, especially when he made sound effects. Kaelis began tracking her neurological development, which had already surpassed Eolaran fetal benchmarks by 300%. Nixie started composing lullabies with multi-dimensional harmonics. And then the council returned. They didn't knock, they just arrived, shimmering ships surrounding the outpost like judgmental Christmas ornaments. Kaelis watched them descend with a measured expression. Damon, less measured, muttered, "Great. The sparkly robe patrol is back." This time, the lead delegate wore a ceremonial sash. That never meant anything good. "You have created a life that defies classification," the delegate said. "It destabilizes known law. It breaches the boundaries of species and society. It is a threat." Damon stepped forward. "She's a baby. Her biggest threat so far was projectile milk." "She radiates subquantum influence," the second said. "She altered our scanning equipment from orbit." Kaelis held Nova close. "You will not take her. This is not about removal. We require observation, cooperation, integration into our scientific understanding." Damon narrowed his eyes. "That sounds a lot like study her forever in a lab. We offer full resources, safety, knowledge." Kaelis stood tall. They blinked. Damon stared. "Wait, really? That was your actual answer?" "I have learned," she said, turning to him, "that not all knowledge must be dissected. Some must be experienced. Some must be protected." The council faltered. The lead delegate exhaled. "You would exile yourself further for this hybrid?" Kaelis looked down at Nova, who gurgled and caused the floor panel to ripple like water. "Yes." Damon took Nova from her and added, "And for what it's worth, I would too, even if I'm just a Terran with questionable fashion sense." There was a long silence. Then the council delegate removed her sash and handed it to Kaelis. "You are no longer unstable." Damon blinked. "Wait, that's all it took? You just wanted her to say no dramatically?" "Science is not absence of emotion," the delegate said. We feared your bond compromised your objectivity. Now we see it has refined your understanding. Damon held up Nova. So, she's not getting turned into an exhibit? No, Kaelis whispered. She is our future, not theirs to claim. Later, after the council departed and Nixie gleefully reported that no missiles had been launched, Kaelis turned to Damon. I have been considering your previous suggestion, she said. He looked up from strapping new stabilizers to Nova's hovering bassinet. The one about replacing diapers with tiny force fields? No, the other one, that we are a team, he smiled. We are. I was resistant, she admitted, but I find the concept increasingly logical. Well, he said, walking to her, you always were slow to adopt new theories. She reached up and touched his cheek. You make the chaos tolerable, she said. Even preferable. He kissed her. Just once. Softly. Nova floated between them, snoring and accidentally turning the room's temperature up 5 degrees. Somewhere far away, the universe spun on, indifferent, vast, unpredictable. But here, in the hum of an abandoned outpost now filled with life, something extraordinary had begun. Not an experiment, not a mistake, a family. And for the first time, Kaelis didn't want to measure it. She just wanted to live it. The end.